Welcome everybody to Keys to the Kingdom. I'm Marissa, and today we are going to be finishing up our Book of Jubilees study. We are actually going to be in chapters 36 through 43 today. We're just picking up where we left off in our study from last year that we didn't get to finish. And hopefully you have been able to read some of the previous chapters of this book. As you can see behind me, these are the caves of Qumran. This is where the Book of Jubilees was found amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls. And yeah, so we're going to pick up where we left off in chapter 36. I'm really sorry that I am fashionably late again. However, everything that I was trying to do before 11:30 took twice as long because it's burning up outside. I live in Florida. Pray for us in Florida. We're burning up down here. We're just like, we're hot in tank tops and flip-flops. It's just so hot. It's hot even with the air conditioning on inside. Like, I don't know how people near the equator do it. But there seems to be a heat wave over the entire United States, so I'm glad it's not just us. But down here in Florida, it's really hot. It's really hot. In fact, we had an advisory warning about the heat. Hi, Brittany. Good to see you. God bless you. So glad you can make it. You're in Texas. I cannot even imagine the heat that you're experiencing. Well, I can. You know, we're kind of the same. Texas and Florida a little bit. Yeah, it's super hot. And it's only June. So I told my husband, I said, what is it going to be like in July and August? And we're kind of preparing for hurricane season. I'm thinking that this is going to be a pretty bad hurricane season, being that it started getting hot like towards the end of May, and there was already a couple of hurricanes. So yeah, it's too hot, Brittany. And it's just brutal. But I think this hurricane season's going to be bad. So I pray that it doesn't affect any of you, that it doesn't affect us. However, this is just the way that nature works. So yeah, I'm sorry about being late. But, you know, if you missed the video, if you ever miss the videos, you don't have to be necessarily on the live, because you can always go back and watch them. But the reason, just to kind of recap from last year, because last year we spoke about why we were reading the Book of Jubilees, and the reason is, you know, it was a part of canons on the eastern side of the world. It's still in part of the Ethiopic canon that was found that was totally intact. It was a complete canon. It included the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, and the only book it didn't contain was the Book of Esther, actually. And in the Dead Sea Scrolls, there were several copies found amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls. So it was just on the eastern side of Europe that they started rejecting certain books. So we're studying this out for ourselves to see what it says. So hopefully you've gone through, you know, the first 35 chapters, but we're going to pick up today in chapter 36, and I'm just going to bring the scriptures up on the screen so that you can follow along. So let me go ahead and we'll just go ahead and get into chapter 36 right now, okay? Okay, so here is chapter 36. So now we're at the point in time, because remember, the Book of Jubilees is kind of like the Book of Chronicles, where it's chronicalizing a certain time frame of events. So this is from creation to Mount Sinai. Okay, that's what the Book of Jubilees covers, from the start of creation all the way through till Mount Sinai. And actually, it is written from the perspective of the angels imparting this information to Moses atop Mount Sinai. Okay, so just so you know who wrote it or who's speaking to who in this book. But chapter 36 says, in the 6th year of this week, Isaac called his 2 sons, Esau and Jacob, and they came to him. And he said to them, my sons, I am going the way of my fathers. So Jacob is about to die. He's about to pass on. Isaac, not Jacob. Isaac is about to pass. He says, I'm about to go the way of my fathers to the eternal house where my fathers are. Bury me near Abraham, my father, in the double cave in the field of Ephron the Hittite. Because remember, Abraham purchased those caves for burial purposes. Where Abraham purchased, well, here it is, where Abraham purchased a sepulcher to bury in, bury me in the sepulcher I dug for myself. I command you, my sons, to practice righteousness and uprightness on the earth, so that Yah may do to you what he said he would do to Abraham and his offspring. Love one another, love your brothers as a man who loves his own soul. Let each seek how he may benefit his brother and act together in the earth. Let them love each other as their own souls. I command and warn you to reject idols, hate them, and do not love them. They are fully deceptive to those who worship them and for those that bow down to them. Remember Yah Elohim of Abraham your father, and how I worshipped him and served him in righteousness and in joy, that Elohim might multiply you and increase your offspring as the multitude of stars in the heaven, and establish you on the earth as the plant of righteousness, which will not be rooted out, to all generations forever. And now I shall make you swear a great oath, for there is no oath which is greater than that which is by the name glorious, honored, great, splendid, wonderful, and mighty, which created the heavens and the earth and all things together, that you will fear him and worship him. Each will love his brother with affection and righteousness, neither will desire to do evil against his brother, from now on forever all the days of your life, so that you may prosper in all your deeds and not be destroyed. If either of you plans evil against his brother, know that he that plans evil shall fall into the brother's hand, and shall be rooted out of the land of the living, and his offspring shall be destroyed from under heaven. But on that day there will be turbulence, curses, wrath, anger, and he will burn his land and his city and all that is his with a devouring fire, like the fire he sent to burn Sodom, and he shall be blotted out of the book of the discipline of the children of men. And he will not be recorded in the book of life. So here we see the book of life. He shall be added in the book of destruction. He shall depart into eternal curses. Their condemnation may be always renewed in hate and curses and in wrath and in torment and in anger and in plagues and in disease forever. My sons, I say this to testify to you. My sons, this I say and testify to you will be the result according to the judgment which shall come to the man who wishes to injure his brother. Then he divided all his possessions between the two, so between Jacob and Esau, and gave the larger portion to him that was the firstborn, and the tower and all that was around it, and all that Abraham possessed at the well of oath. He said, this larger portion I will give to the firstborn. Esau said, I have sold and relinquished my birthright to Jacob. Let it be given to him. I have nothing to say regarding it, for it is his. Now, this part of Jubilees doesn't really make sense when we read the book of Genesis, because Esau's infuriated at Jacob, whereas here it looks like he's kind of just laying his birthright down. Let it be given to them. I have nothing to say regarding it, for it is his. Isaac said, may a blessing rest on you, my sons, and on your offspring this day. You have given me rest, and my heart is not pained concerning the birthright, or that you should work wickedness because of it. May the Most High Elohim bless the man and his offspring forever that does righteousness. He stopped commanding them and blessing them, and ate and drank together in front of him, and he rejoiced because there was one mind between them. And they went out for him and rested that day and slept. Okay, I have to pause here for a moment. I would have to ask somebody who has thoroughly studied this book and also still compares it to Genesis, because what I'm reading here doesn't seem to align with the story of when Jacob was given the blessing. I mean, we know that Jacob stole it. Jacob got both of the blessings. The blessing of the firstborn and the birthright. The birthright, when Esau came in and he asked him for a pot of stew because he had come in from hunting and he was like famished, about to die. Jacob said, well, send me your birthright. And Esau's like, what good is my birthright to me right now when I'm about to die? And he gave it to him willingly. But then he goes to his father as if he is Esau, and he steals the birthright of the first of the elder son. So I'm not really understanding how this also could have happened, where Esau's just laying it down. He was like, I sold it to my brother, no big deal, and they're at peace with each other. That doesn't seem to coincide with the scriptures that we have. Isaac slept on his bed that day, rejoicing. He slept the eternal sleep and died 180 years old. He lived 25 weeks and 5 years, and his two sons Esau and Jacob buried him. After that, Esau went to the land of Edom, to the mountains of Seir, and lived there. Jacob lived in the mountains of Hebron, in the high place of the land in which his father Abraham had journeyed. He worshipped Yah with all his heart. He had divided the days of his generations according to the commands he had seen. Leah, his wife, died in the 4th year of the 2nd week of the 45th Jubilee, and he buried her. See, I'm wondering, actually, let me just pause here for a second. Let me just back up to chapter 35. Let's just back up for a minute, because I don't want to hold on. Okay, so this is where Rebecca's talking to Jacob. See, this is why we have to go back and read chapter 35. Rebecca's talking to Jacob, just like she did in Genesis. And she said, my son, in all my days I have not seen any perverseness in you, but only upright deeds. Yet I will tell you the truth, my son, I shall die this year. I shall not survive this year in my life. I have seen the day of my death in a dream. So apparently, according to this, Rebecca had a dream of when she was going to die, and it was going to be this year. I should not live beyond 155 years. I have completed all the days that I am to live my life. Jacob laughed at the words of his mother because words of his mother. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm having some. Okay. So Jacob laughs because his mother says she's going to die. She was sitting across from him in possession of her strength, and she was still strong. She came and went. She could see well. Her teeth were strong. No sickness had touched her life in all her days. Jacob said to her, if my days of life are close to yours, my strength remain with me. I will be blessed, mother. You will not die. You are simply joking in regards to your death. So here she says, I make one request of you. Make Esau swear that he will not injure Jacob. This is what she says to Isaac. Nor pursue him with intent to harm him. You know Esau's thoughts have been perverse from his youth. There is no goodness in him. He desires to kill him after you die. Okay, so they are talking here about how Esau wanted to kill Jacob. She says, you know all that he has done since the day Jacob his brother went to Haran until that day. He has forsaken us with his whole heart. He has done evil to us. He has stolen your flocks and carried off all your possessions while you watched. Esau also married outside of the family, which was a disgrace to his family and his parents. When we asked him and begged him for what was our own, he did as a stranger, as a man or a stranger who was taking pity on us. He is bitter against you because you blessed Jacob, your perfect and upright son. There is no evil, but only goodness in Jacob. Okay, so let me just, that's my fault. Isaac said to her, I know and see the deeds of Jacob who is with us, how he honors us with all his heart. Before I loved Esau more than Jacob because he was the firstborn, but now I love Jacob more than Esau, for Esau has done many evil deeds, and there is no righteousness in him. All his ways are unrighteousness and violence. My heart is troubled because of all his deeds. He and his children have forsaken the Elohim of Abraham and gone. Okay, so let me just back up. That's my fault. So you have to go back in the previous chapters. I needed to refresh my memory, and I was actually supposed to read all 35 chapters before I did this video, and I actually read like half of that, and I didn't get through till 35. But what happens is in previous chapters, you see where the two are at odds. It's not until their father actually passes that they had sort of made amends, so to speak. If you remember correctly, Jacob and Esau end up making amends after Jacob goes off and marries and has kids. Then according to Jubilees, then he comes back at his father's death, and Jacob is sort of, that's why he's giving it. That's why he is sort of at peace with it. So when we picked up in chapter 36, all of those things had already happened. So it seemed like it wasn't coinciding with the storyline, but now I'm refreshed. My apologies. You just have to go back in the previous verses, and all of that has already happened. Jacob and Esau have already made amends, just like in the book of Genesis. This is just showing what happens when Isaac is actually about to die. Hey Marissa, glad you could make it. We were just refreshing our memory on what the previous verses said. Just so you know, there's no link to the live video. You just have to go on the Keys to the Kingdom page and just see the live video. It's going to be the first thing on the page, but there's no link. Sorry. Everybody thinks there's a link, but there's no link to the live video. You just go onto the Keys to the Kingdom page, and then it's just there. But if you haven't read the first 35 chapters, I recommend that you do, so that you understand where we're at in chapter 36. Okay, so let's go ahead with chapter 36. So he says, now I shall make you swear a great oath, for there is no oath which is greater than that Okay, so we read that already. Um, he says, if either of you plans evil against his brother, and then he gives all the curses that will happen if you plan evil against his brother. Actually, this is very prophetic of the days to come and all the nations that would come from Esau and all the nations that would come from Jacob. We still see hatred between Jacob and Esau to this very day. I don't know. Okay, so Esau says, I relinquished my birthright to Jacob, let it be given to him. Isaac said, may a blessing rest on you, my sons, and on your offspring. You have given me rest, and my heart is not pained concerning the birthright, or that you should work wickedness because of it. May the Most High Elohim bless the man and his offspring forever that does righteousness. He stopped commanding them and blessing them, and they ate and drank together in front of him. And he rejoiced because there was one mind between them, and they went out from him and rested that day and slept. Isaac slept on his bed that day rejoicing. He slept the eternal sleep, so he died, and died 180 years old. He lived 25 weeks and 5 years, and his two sons Esau and Jacob buried him. After that, Esau went to the land of Edom and the mountains of Seir. Jacob goes to Hebron. He worships Yahweh with all his heart. He divided his days of his generations according to the commands. Okay, so this is where we left off. Leah, his wife, died in the 4th year of the 2nd week of the 45th Jubilee, and he buried her in the double cave near Rebekah, his mother, to the left of the grave of Sarah, his father's mother. All her sons and his sons came to mourn over Leah, his wife, with him, and to comfort him regarding her. He was lamenting her, for he loved her greatly after Rachel, her sister, died. She was perfect and upright in all her ways, and she honored Jacob. All the days that she lived with him, he did not hear from her mouth a harsh word, for she was gentle, peaceable, upright, and honorable. And he remembered all the deeds she had done during her life, and he lamented her greatly. He loved her with all his heart and with all his soul. Okay, so Leah passes. Now we are in chapter 37, and it says, on the day that Isaac, the father of Jacob and Esau, died, the sons of Esau heard that Isaac had given the elder's portion to his younger son Jacob, and they were angry. So now we see the sons of Esau angry about Jacob getting the inheritance. They argue with their father, saying, Why has your father given Jacob the portion of the elder and passed you over, even though you are the elder and Jacob's the younger? He said, Because I sold my birthright to Jacob for a small portion of lentils. And on the day my father sent me to hunt, catch, and bring him something that he should eat and bless me, Jacob came with deceit and brought my father food and drink. My father blessed him and put me under his hand. Now our father has caused Jacob and me to swear that we shall not devise evil plans against my brother or each other, and that we shall continue in love and in peace, each with his brother, and not make our ways corrupt. They said to him, We shall not listen to you to make peace with him. We are stronger than him, and we are more powerful than he is. We shall dispose him and kill him and destroy him and his sons. If you will not go with us, we shall hurt you also. So, oh my gosh. So, this is Esau's sons, which by the way are, he mixed with Canaanite women. So his sons are telling him, if you won't go with us to kill Jacob and his offspring, because we're stronger, then we're going to do it, and if you try to stop us, we'll kill you also. That's the kind of that's the kind of character that, hey, Mersada, so glad you can make it. That's the kind of character that Esau passed down to his sons. Not to mention that the mother or mothers also probably contributed to that as well. Some people's kids. Yeah, see, that's what happens when you don't raise your kids right. So, they will even turn against the father. Okay, so let's see here what happens. So, if you will not go with us, we shall hurt you also. Listen, let us send to Aram, Philistia, Moab, and Ammon. Let us take chosen men who are trained in battle, and let us go against him and do battle with him. Let us exterminate him from the earth before he grows strong. So there is already this animosity against Jacob and his sons, simply because of this family dynamic and this family dysfunction, because of what happened with the birthright. Their father said to them, "Do not go and do not make war with him, or you shall fall before him." Because remember, Isaac literally just prophesied to his sons that if any of your offspring tries to plan wickedness or evil against his brother, he is going to fall before him, and his name is not going to be written in the book of life. Isaac literally just prophesied this. So Esau, who has actually come to terms with everything, is now fighting his own sons who are trying to go against this. So he says, "You will fall before him." They said to him, "This is how you have acted from your youth until this day. You have continued to put your neck under his yoke. We shall not listen to these words." Then they sent to Aram and to Aduram, to the friend of their father, and they also hired 1,000 chosen men of war. Now, and there came to them from Moab and from the children of Ammon those who were hired, 1,000 chosen men, and from Philistia, so that's the Philistines, and 1,000 chosen warriors, and from Edom, from the Horites, 1,000 chosen warriors, and from the Kittim. Okay, I just have to pause here for a second. So his sons have befriended and are in cohorts with all of the surrounding nations, which are all the Amorites, the Hittites, the Jebusites. Now Moab and the Ammon and Moab, those are the sons of Lot. Remember when Lot's daughters thought that after Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, they thought that they were the only ones left on the earth? So they got their father drunk and they made him have sex with them, and they had children, incestual children from Lot. Well, those are the countries of Lot, and also the countries of the Philistines. So you have the Philistines, the Amorites, the Hittites. These are all, except for the Moabites and the Ammonites, that come from Lot and his daughters, the incestual union of Lot and his daughters. These are also the Nephilim. So this is who Esau's children have sort of gotten into this relationship with, where they're like, "Oh, we're just going to get our buddies over here that are giants, they're huge. We're going to hire them and we're going to take Jacob down." This is a family feud that has been going on since the beginning and is still going on today. Okay. Yes, mighty warriors. They said to their father, "Go out with them and lead them, or else we shall kill you." So Esau's own kids are threatening to kill him. And he was filled with boiling anger on seeing that his sons were forcing him to go before them to lead them against Jacob his brother. But afterwards he remembered all the evil that lay hidden in his heart against Jacob his brother, and he did not remember the oath he had sworn to his father and to his mother, that he would plan no evil against his brother Jacob. So now he's just forgetting it. Because Jacob was in mourning for his wife Leah, he did not know they were coming to battle against him until they approached the tower with 4,000 soldiers and chosen warriors. The men of Hebron sent to him, saying, "Look, your brother has come against you to fight. He has with him 4,000 men carrying swords, shields, and weapons." They told him this because they loved Jacob more than Esau. So they told him, for Jacob was a more gracious and merciful man than Esau. But Jacob would not believe until they came very near to the tower. He closed the gates of the tower and stood on the battlements and spoke to his brother Esau and said, "Noble is the comfort you have come to give me concerning the death of my wife. Is this the oath that you swore to your father and against your mother before they died? You have broken the oath, and on the moment that you swore to your father, you were condemned." Then Esau answered and said to him, "Neither the children of men nor the children of or the beasts of the earth have sworn an oath of righteousness and kept it forever. Every day they lay evil plans one against another regarding how they may kill their adversary or foe." So he's comparing himself to evil men and animals, basically. "You will hate my children and me forever, and so there is no observing the tie of brotherhood with you." Wow, he's putting words in his mouth. "Hear these words that I declare to you. If the boar can change its skin and make its bristles as soft as wool, or if it can cause horns to sprout out on its head like the horns of a stag of a sheep, then will I observe the tie of brotherhood with you. Like beasts separate themselves from their mother and fight, you and I have never been brothers. If the wolves make peace with the lambs and not devour or do them violence, and if their hearts are towards them for good, then there shall be peace in my heart towards you. If the lion becomes friends with the ox and makes peace with him, and if he is bound under one yoke with him and plows with him, then will I make peace with you. When the raven becomes white as the raza," a white bird, "and then know that I have loved you and made peace with you. You will be rooted out, and your sons will be rooted out, and there will be no peace for you." Jacob saw Esau had decided in his heart to do evil towards him, and that he desired with all his soul to kill him. Jacob saw that Esau had come pouncing like a wild boar, which charges the spear that is set to pierce and kills it, and yet does not even slow down. Then he spoke to his own people and his servants and told them that Esau and his men were going to attack him and all his companions. I'm just going to pause there for 1 second because I want to point something out. So you will see after the children of Israel go into Egypt, and after they start coming back into the land. Remember how when they come into the land, when you read the story of them conquering the land, after they're coming out of the wilderness, okay, none of the nations are willing to help them. They are not even willing to let them pass through their land. Somehow Esau was already this early friends, or I don't know if you could say friends, but sort of in agreement with the surrounding nations. All of these nations surrounding them were debaucherous. And most of them were Nephilim. Okay, most of them were giants. Except for, the descendants of Lot, the Moabites and the Ammonites. And Edom, of course, is Esau. But and the Ishmaelites. But when they start coming into the land to take the land, some of those countries, because Esau was like able to put a bad taste in their mouth regarding Jacob. Basically, it's like just pinning people against somebody. He's pinning all the nations and all the even all the descendants of Abraham that were not necessarily under Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but all the other descendants of Abraham that weren't under Esau and Jacob. Isaac and Jacob. I know words. I promise I know words. That were under Isaac and Jacob. There were still families that were created from the line of Abraham, but were still coming against the line of Jacob because Esau basically rallied all of these non-God believing nations against Jacob and his offspring. So that's what we're going to see throughout history, even to this day. Even to this day, when you have Israel coming back into the land and the surrounding nations wanting to kill them, literally want to wipe Israel off the map. You don't think this goes back many years over a teeny tiny piece of land? I mean, it's like this big, and you have the entire Middle East. I mean, it's just land, full of land. They hate the sons of Jacob. From this moment forward, they will always hate the sons of Jacob forever. Okay? To this day. Okay, so let's continue reading. And remember, a curse was pronounced by Isaac to his sons. Whoever devises evil against his brother, he will be cursed and he will fail. He's not even going to succeed. So, chapter 38, it says, after that, Judah spoke to Jacob his father and said to him, bend your bow, father, and send forth your arrows and bring down the adversary and kill the enemy. You have the power to do it. We will not kill your brother because he is your kin and he is like you, so we will honor his life. Then Jacob bent his bow and sent forth the arrow and struck Esau, his brother, in the right side of his chest and killed him. Whoa. Hold on a second. So, all of a sudden, we have Judah speaking to his father Jacob, saying, bend your bow, we'll kill all these other people, but we won't kill your brother Esau because he's like you. But Jacob just had a conversation with Esau that possibly Judah did not hear. And he bends his bow, pulls it back, and shoots and kills Esau? Hits him in the chest? Whoa, what just happened? And killed him. And again he sent forth an arrow and struck Adoron the Armenian on the left side of his chest, and it drove him backwards and killed him. Then the sons of Jacob and their servants went out, dividing themselves into companies on the four sides of the tower. Judah went out in front, Naphtali and Gad, along with the 50 servants, went to the south of the tower, and they killed all they found before them. Not one individual escaped. Levi, Dan, and Asher went out to the east side of the tower, along with 50 men, and they killed the warriors of Moab and Ammon. Reuben, Issachar, and Zebulun went out to the north side of the tower, along with 50 men, and they killed the warriors of the Philistines. Reuben's sons, Simeon and Benjamin and Enoch, went out from the west side of the tower along with 50 men, and they killed 400 men, stout warriors of Edom and of Horites. 600 fled, and 4 of the sons of Esau fled with them, and left their father lying killed as he had fallen on the hill that is in Adoram. And the sons of Jacob pursued them to the mountains of Seir, and Jacob buried his brother on the hill that is in Adoram, and he returned to his house. See, we don't see any of this in the book of Genesis. We don't see how Esau dies. We don't see this particular fight going on either. Because in Genesis we read how, Jacob wrestles with the angel and his hip is taken out of place and he renames Jacob Israel, and then he finally confronts his brother and his brother welcomes him. And so there's that moment where Jacob and Esau have basically made amends. And then we don't see anything happening after that, but we see later on that the descendants of Jacob and the descendants of Edom do not get along. And in fact, they fight, and Edom is always siding with, the nations, the surrounding nations, which are the evil nations. But we don't see how that happened. So it's interesting here because we see how they went from hating each other to making up to hating each other again. We don't get any of that in the book of Genesis. This is interesting. Okay, so let's keep reading. So the sons of Jacob crushed the sons of Esau in the mountains of Seir, and they made them bow their necks, so they became servants of the sons of Jacob. They sent a message to their father to inquire whether they should make peace with them or kill them. Jacob sent word to his sons that they should make peace. They made peace with them, so these are the sons of Esau, but also placed the yoke of servitude on them, so that they paid tribute to Jacob and to his sons always. And they continued to pay tribute to Jacob until the day he went down to Egypt. The sons of Edom is the same as Esau. The sons of Edom have not escaped the yoke of servitude imposed by the 12 sons of Jacob until this day. That's interesting. The sons of Edom have not escaped the yoke of servitude imposed by the 12 sons of Jacob until this day. We don't see that. We don't see that at all in Genesis. We don't see the sons of Esau serving the sons of Jacob. But according to this, they did all the way up until Jacob went to Egypt. But it says they continued to be servants to this day. It's very interesting. These are the kings that reigned in Edom before there was any king over the children of Israel until this day in the land of Edom. And Balak, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom. We know who Balak is because we hear about him further on. See, this is interesting because this ties into, because remember when the children of Israel were in the wilderness, Balak, the son of Beor, see, they schemed and plotted and tried to curse the sons of Jacob. And the name of his city was Dinhabah. Balak died, and Joab, the son of Zerah of Bozer, ruled in his place. Joab died, and Assam, the land of Teman, ruled in his place. Assam died, and Adath, the son of Barad, who killed Midian in the field of Moab, ruled in his place, and the name of his city was Avith. Adath died, and Salmon from Amasekah ruled in his place. So these are all the kings of Edom. So the descendants of Esau. Solomon died, and Saul of Rehoboth by the river ruled in his place. Saul died, and Baal-Lunan, the son of Achbor, ruled in his place. Baal-Lunan, the son of Achbor, died, and Adath ruled in his place, and the name of his wife was Metabith, the daughter of Metarat, the daughter of Metabedzabah. Okay, I can't say that name. These are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom. So these were all the kings, and we don't get that in the book of Genesis. We don't see all the kings of Edom. I don't recall seeing the kings of Edom. Chapter 39. Jacob lived in the land that his father journeyed in, which is the land of Canaan. So Jacob is establishing his land in Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph was 17 years old when they took him down to the land of Egypt, and Potiphar, a eunuch of Pharaoh, the chief cook, bought him. He made Joseph the manager over Potiphar's entire house, and the blessing of Yah came on the house of the Egyptian because of Joseph, and Yah caused him to prosper in all that he did. The Egyptian turned everything over to the hands of Joseph because he saw that Yah was with him, and that Yah caused him to prosper in all that he did. Joseph's appearance was beautiful, and his master's wife watched Joseph, and she loved him and wanted to have sex with her, But he did not surrender his soul, because he remembered Yah and the words which Jacob his father used to read to him from the writings of Abraham, that no man should commit fornication with a woman who has a husband. For him the punishment of death has been ordained in the heavens before the Most High Elohim, and the sin will be recorded against him in the eternal books, which are always in the presence of Yah. Joseph remembered these words and refused to have sex with her. And she begged him for a year, but he refused and would not listen. All of this we see in the book of Genesis. But while he was in the house, she remembered him and held him tightly in order to force him to sleep with her. She closed the doors of the house and held on to him, but he left his garment in her hands and broke through the door and ran out of her presence. The woman saw that he would not sleep with her, and she slandered him in the presence of his master, saying, "Your Hebrew servant, whom you love, sought to force me to have sex with him. When I shouted for help, he fled and left his garments in my hands. I tried to stop him, but he broke through the door." When the Egyptians saw Joseph's garments and the broken door, and heard the words of his wife, he threw Joseph into prison and put him in the place where the prisoners of the kings were kept. He was there in the prison, and Yah gave Joseph favor in the sight of the chief of the prison guards, and caused him to have compassion for Joseph, because he saw Yah was with him, and that Yah made all that he did to prosper. He turned over all things into his hands, and the chief of the prison guards knew of nothing that was going on in the prison, because Joseph did everything for him, and Yah perfected it. He remained there 2 years. In those days, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, was very angry at his 2 eunuchs, the chief butler and the chief baker. He put them in the prison facility of the house of the chief cook, where Joseph was kept. The chief of the prison guards appointed Joseph to serve them, and he served them. They both dreamed a dream, the chief butler and the chief baker, and they told it to Joseph. As he interpreted to them, so it happened to them. And Pharaoh restored the chief butler to his office, and he killed the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. But the chief butler forgot Joseph was in prison, although he had informed him of what would happen to him. He did not remember to inform Pharaoh of what Joseph had told him, about his dream, because he forgot. All right, chapter 40. So all of this so far we see in the book of Genesis regarding Joseph. In those days, Pharaoh dreamed 2 dreams in one night concerning a famine that was to be in the land. And he awoke from his sleep and called all the magicians and interpreters of dreams that were in Egypt. And he told his 2 dreams, but they were not able to tell him what they meant. Then the chief butler remembered Joseph and told the king of him. And he brought him out from the prison, and the king told his 2 dreams. He said before Pharaoh that his 2 dreams were one. And he said to him, 7 years shall come, in which there shall be plenty in all the land of Egypt. But after that, 7 years of famine, such a famine as has not been in all the land. Now let Pharaoh appoint administrators in all the land of Egypt, and let them store up food in every city throughout all the years of plenty. And there will be food for the 7 years of famine. And those of the land will not perish because the famine, even though it will be very severe. Yah gave Joseph favor and mercy in the eyes of Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to his servants, "We shall not find such a wise and prudent man like this man, because the Spirit of Yah is with him." And he appointed Joseph the second in command to his entire kingdom, and gave him authority over all Egypt, and placed him on the second chariot of Pharaoh to ride. He clothed him with fine linen clothes, and put a gold chain around his neck, and a crier proclaimed before him, El wa Abirer. And he placed a ring on his hand, and made him ruler over all his house, and lifted him up before the people, and said to him, "Only on the throne shall I be greater than you." Joseph ruled over all the land of Egypt, and all the governors of Pharaoh, and all his servants, and all those who did the king's business loved him, because he walked in uprightness, because he was without pride and arrogance. He did not judge people by their position, and did not accept gifts, but he judged all the people of the land in uprightness. The land of Egypt was at peace before Pharaoh because of Joseph, because Yah was with him, and Yah gave him favor and mercy for all his generations before all those who knew him and those who heard of him. And Pharaoh's kingdom was run efficiently, and there was no Satan or adversary, and no evil person in it. And the king called Joseph's name Sephantiphens, and gave Joseph the daughter of Pontiphar, the daughter of the priest of Heliopolis, the chief cook, to marry. On the day that Joseph stood before Pharaoh, he was 30 years old. In that year Isaac died. Things transpired as Joseph had said in the interpretation of Pharaoh's dream, and there was 7 years of plenty over all the land of Egypt, and the land of Egypt abundantly produced, one measure producing 1,800 measures. Joseph gathered food in every city until there was full grain, and they could no longer count or measure it because of its multitude. Most of that we see in Genesis. There's a couple of little additives in there that we don't see, but for the most part, everything that we see there is in Genesis. In the 45th Jubilee, on the 2nd week and in the 2nd year, Judah took his firstborn, a wife from the daughters of Aram, named Tamar. Because remember, Judah goes off kind of ashamed of what happened because remember, he helped sell Joseph into slavery, and so he kind of goes off. He took his firstborn, a wife from the daughters of Aram, and named Tamar. But he hated her, did, and did not have sex with her, because her mother was of the daughters of Canaan. You know, most people don't realize this, but Judah went for a time to the Canaanites. And this son did not want to be with Tamar because she was from the Canaanites. Can you believe it? The line of Judah? Because her mother was of the daughters of Canaan, and he wished to take a wife of the lineage of his mother, But Judah his father would not permit him to do that. So the firstborn of Judah, was wicked, and Yah killed him. And Judah said to Onan his brother, which was brother. So Onan is Judah's son, but brother. Go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her, and raise up offspring to your brother. Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, but his brother's only. And he went into the house of his brother's wife, and he spilt his seed on the ground. And he was wicked in the eyes of Yah, and he killed him. Because according to the Torah, if your brother dies, you're supposed to marry his wife and have children with her so that you would continue the offspring. You would continue the family line. And they chose not to do that. Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain in your father's house as a widow until Shelah, my son. So Shelah was the younger son, but he was too young at this point. And he says, wait in your father's house as a widow until Shelah, my son, has grown up, and I shall give you to him as a wife. He grew up, but Bethuel, the wife of Judah, did not permit her son Shelah to marry. Bethuel, Judah's wife, died in her 5th year of this week. In the 6th year, Judah went up to shear his sheep at Timnah. And they told Tamar, look, your father-in-law is going to Timnah to shear his sheep. She took off her widow's clothes and put on a veil, and adorned herself and sat at the gate connecting the road to Timnah. As Judah was going along, he saw her and thought she was a prostitute, and he said to her, let me come in to you. And she said to him, come in, and he went in. So basically at this point, Judah's wife had died. So Judah is also a widower. A widower? A widow. He's a widow, and now apparently sees this prostitute who is actually his daughter-in-law, who he promised to give his son but didn't. So she said to him, give me my pay. And he said to her, I have nothing with me except my ring that is on my finger, my necklace, and my staff which is in my hand. She said to him, give them to me until you send me pay. And he said to her, I will send you a kid of goats. And he gave her his ring, necklace, and staff, and she conceived by him. So she conceives by this one incident. Judah went to his sheep, and she went to her father's house. Judah sent a kid of goats by the hand of a shepherd, an Adullamite, but he could not find her. So he asked the people of the place, saying, where is the prostitute who was here? And they said to him, there is no prostitute here with us. And he returned and informed Judah that he had not found her. I asked the people of the place, and they said to me, there is no prostitute here with us. He said, if you see her, give the kids to her, or we become a cause of ridicule. And when she had completed 3 months, it was revealed that she was with child. And they told Judah, saying, look, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, is with child by whoredom. Basically, they found out, she was 3 months pregnant. So it's becoming obvious now. And they're saying, look, your daughter-in-law Tamar is a whore. She's pregnant, and we don't know how. Judah went to the house of her father and said to her father and her brothers, bring her out and let me burn her, for she has committed uncleanliness in Israel. It happened, when they brought her out to burn her, that she sent to her father-in-law the ring and the necklace and the staff, saying, tell us whose are these, because by him I am with child. Judah acknowledged and said, Tamar is more righteous than I am. Do not let her burn. And for that reason she was not given to Shelah, and he did not again approach her. And after that she gave birth to 2 sons, Perez and Zerah, in the 7th year of the 2nd week. At this time the 7 years of fruitfulness were complete, of which Joseph spoke to Pharaoh. Judah acknowledged the evil deed that he had done because he had sex with his daughter-in-law, and he hated himself for it. He acknowledged that he transgressed and gone astray because he had uncovered the skirt of his son, and he began to lament and to supplicate before Yah because of his transgression. We told him in a dream that it was forgiven him. Now, when this says we told him, these are the angels that are speaking to Moses. That's where Jubilees is coming from. It's being delivered by angels to Moses. So they're saying, we told him in a dream that it was forgiven him because he supplicated earnestly and lamented and did not commit the act again. So Judah repented. And the angels told him that he was forgiven. And he received forgiveness because he turned from his sin and from his ignorance, because he transgressed greatly before Elohim. Everyone that acts like this, everyone who has sex with his mother-in-law, let them burn him alive with fire. Because there is uncleanliness and pollution in them, let them burn them alive. Command the children of Israel that there should be no uncleanliness among them, because everyone who has sex with his daughter-in-law or his mother-in-law has committed uncleanliness. Let them burn the man who has had sex with her with fire, and likewise burn the woman, so that Elohim will turn away with wrath and punishment from Israel. We told Judah that his 2 sons had not had sex with her, and for this reason his offspring was established for a 2nd generation and would not be rooted out. So the only reason that his offspring would not be rooted out is because she was never actually with or slept with his sons. Because the first one died before they could be together, because he wouldn't sleep with her, because her mom was a Canaanite. And then the second one, remember, he spilled his seed so that he couldn't impregnate her, because he didn't want to be with her either, because it was actually his brother's wife. For in a single-mindedness he had gone and sought for punishment, namely, according to the judgment of Abraham, which he had commanded his sons, Judah had sought to burn her alive. Okay, chapter 42. In the 1st year of the 3rd week of the 45th Jubilee, the famine began to come into the land, and the rain refused to be given in the earth. None whatsoever fell. The earth became barren, but in the land of Egypt there was food, because Joseph had gathered the seed of the land in the 7 years of plenty he had preserved it. Hey, Jessica, glad you can make it, sweetie. And Rachel's here. So the Egyptians came to Joseph that he might give them food, and he opened the storehouse where the grain of the 1st year was stored, and he sold it to the people of the land for gold. Jacob heard there was food in Egypt, and he sent his 10 sons that they should procure food for him in Egypt. And they arrived among those that went there, but Benjamin he did not send. Joseph recognized them, but they did not recognize him. He spoke to them and questioned them, and he said to them, Are you not spies, and have you not come to explore ways to enter this land? Then he put them in custody, and after that he set them free again, and detained Simeon alone, and sent his 9 brothers away. He filled their sacks with corn, and put on their gold on their backs, and put their gold back in their sacks, and they did not know it. Joseph then commanded them to bring their younger brother, because they had told him their father was living, and also their younger brother. They went up from the land of Egypt, and they came to the land of Canaan, where they told their father all that had happened to them, and how the rulers of the country had spoken rudely to them, and had seized Simeon until they should bring Benjamin. Jacob said, "You have taken my children from me. Joseph has gone, and Simeon also is gone. Now you will take Benjamin away? Am I the victim of your wickedness? He said, "My son will not go down with you, because fate may have it that he will fall sick." Their mother gave birth to 2 sons, and one has died, and this one you will also take from me? If by fate he took a fever on the road, would you turn my old age to sorrow and death? He saw that every man's money had been returned to him in his sack. For that reason he feared to send them. The famine increased and became grievous in the land of Canaan, and in all lands except the land of Egypt. Egypt had food because many of the children of the Egyptians had stored up their seed for food from the time when they saw Joseph gathering seed together and putting it in storehouses and preserving it for the years of famine. The people of Egypt fed themselves on it during the first year of their famine, but when Israel saw that the famine was very serious in the land, and that there was no deliverance, he said to his sons, "Go again and procure food for us so that we may not die." They said, "We shall not go unless our youngest brother goes with us." Israel saw that if he did not send Benjamin with him, they would all perish because of the famine. Reuben said, "Give him to me. If I do not bring him back to you, kill my 2 sons in payment for his soul." Israel said to Reuben, "He shall not go with you." Judah came near and said, "Send him with me, and if I do not bring him back, let me bear your blame all the days of my life." He sent him with them in the 2nd year of this week on the 1st day of the month. They all came to the land of Egypt, and they had presents in their hands of sweet spice, almonds, turpentine nuts, and pure honey. And they went and stood before Joseph, and he saw Benjamin his brother, and he knew him, and said to them, "Is this your youngest brother?" And they said to him, "It is he." He said, "Yah be gracious to you, my son." And he sent Benjamin into his house, and he brought out Simeon to them. Joseph made a feast for them, and they presented to him the gifts that they brought in their hands. They ate before Joseph, and they gave him all the portion of food, but the portion of food given to Benjamin was 7 times larger than any of theirs, and they ate and drank and got up and remained with their donkeys. So most of this we see in the book of Genesis. Joseph devised a plan whereby he might learn their thoughts as to whether they desired peace or not. He said to the steward who was over his house, "Fill all their sacks with food, place their money back in their vessels, put my cup, the silver cup of which out of which I drink, in the sack of the youngest, and send them away." Okay, last chapter, chapter 43. He did as Joseph had told him, and filled their sacks with food for them, and put their money back in their sacks, and put the cup in Benjamin's sack. Early in the morning they departed, and it happened that when they had gone from that place, Joseph said to the steward of the house, "Pursue them, run and seize them, and say, 'You have repaid my kindness with evil. You have stolen from me the silver cup out of which my master drinks. Bring me back their youngest brother. Go, get him quickly, before I go get my seat of judgment.'" He ran after them and said these words as he was told. They said to him, "Elohim forbid that your servants should do such a thing, and steal any utensil or money from the house of your master, like the things we found in our sacks the first time we, your servants, came back from the land of Canaan. We had not stolen any utensil. How could we? Look here in our sacks and search, and wherever you can find the cup in the sack of any man among us, let him be killed, and we and our donkeys will serve your master." He said to them, "Not so. If I find it, the man whose sack I find it in, I shall take a servant, and the rest of you shall return in peace to your house. He was searching their vessels, beginning with the eldest and ending with the youngest, when it was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they ripped their garments in frustration and placed their belongings back on their donkeys, and returned to the city and came to the house of Joseph. They all bowed themselves with their faces to the ground in front of him. Joseph said to them, "You have done evil." They said, "What shall we say, and how shall we defend ourselves? Our master has discovered the transgression of his servants, and now we and our donkeys are servants of our master." Joseph said to them, "I too fear Yah. As for you, go to your homes and let your brother be my servant. Because you have done evil, I delight in this cup, and no one else delights in his cup. And yet you have stolen it from me." Now Judah says, "O my master, I pray that you let your servant speak a word in my master's ear. Your servant's mother had 2 sons for our father. One went away and was lost, and has not been found since. This one alone is left of his mother, and your servant, our father, loves him. He would die if the lad were lost to him. When we go to your servant our father, and the lad is not with us, it will happen that he will die. He will have brought so much sorrow on our father, it will bring his death. Now rather let me, your servant, stay here as a bondsman to my master instead of the boy. Let the lad go with his brothers, because I will stand in for him at the head of your servant our father. If I do not bring him back, your servant will bear the blame of our father forever." Joseph saw that they were all in accord in doing good to one another. Then he could not refrain himself, and told them that he was Joseph. And he conversed with them in Hebrew tongue, and hugged their necks and wept. At first they did not recognize him, and then they began to weep, and said to them, "Do not weep for me, but hurry and bring me my father to me. See, it is my mouth that speaks, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see me." Pay attention, this is the 2nd year of the famine, and there are still 5 years to come without harvest or fruit of trees or plowing. You and your households come down quickly so that you won't die because of the famine. Do not grieve for your possessions, because Yah sent me before you to set things in order that many people might live. Tell my father that I am still alive. You see that Yah has made me as father to Pharaoh, and ruler over his house and over all the land of Egypt. Tell my father of all my glory and all the riches and glory that Yah has given me. By the command of Pharaoh's mouth he has given them chariots and provisions for the way, and he gave them all multicolored raiment and silver. He sent corn, raiment, silver, and 10 donkeys that carried all of this to his father, and he sent them away. They went up and told their father that Joseph was alive and was measuring out corn to all the nations of the earth, and that he was ruler over all the land of Egypt. But their father did not believe it, because he was not in his right mind. When he saw the wagons, which Joseph had sent, the life of his spirit revived, and he says, "It is enough for me if Joseph lives. I will go down and see him before I die." Okay, so that's our stopping point, chapter 43. And actually, our next video, we're just going to read the rest of Jubilees. So, in these chapters, everything pertaining to Joseph is pretty much the same as the book of Genesis. However, we see a lot of information that we don't see in Genesis regarding what happens with Jacob and Esau after Jacob and Esau make amends. Because I always wondered that. I always wondered, wait a minute, why did Esau's descendants hate Jacob's descendants if Jacob and Esau made amends and they had made peace with each other? Well, apparently there are events that transpired, and eventually Jacob kills Esau with a bow and arrow. According to the book of Jubilees, he kills Esau because Esau swore to his father that they would not war with each other, and that whoever did would be under a curse, and that they would fail. Well, that's what happens. Esau and his sons, his evil sons who convinced him to do this, reignited the hatred that Esau had in his heart for Jacob. And then he went through with it and ends up dying by his brother's hand. Those things we don't see in the book of Genesis. So we're going to pick up in chapter 44 next Tuesday, and we're going to finish the book of Jubilees, and we're going to see what else is in the book of Jubilees that we don't have in the book of Genesis. If you have not read the first 35 chapters, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do so. Get through those first 35 chapters so that you know what was going on. I sort of spoke too soon when I started in chapter 36 at the beginning of this video, because we started reading about Jacob and Esau right as their father is dying, and it looked as if Esau was like totally at peace with giving Jacob the blessing, not realizing that in the previous chapters we saw how they were at war with each other, and then they got to a place where they were at peace with each other. So I misspoke in the beginning of the video, but there's actually a lot in the beginning chapters, those first 35 chapters that we read last year, that we don't have in the book of Genesis. So I encourage you to go read it so that you know what's there. Amen? Alright guys, that's the end of our Jubilee study for today. To me, those chapters that expound on what happened with Jacob and Esau make perfect sense, because we see them at odds throughout the rest of the Bible, but we don't see how that happened after Jacob and Esau made amends. So for me, obviously it fills in a lot of gaps, but it's interesting. Yeah, go back and read the rest if you haven't, and I will see you next Tuesday. We're going to finish the book of Jubilees, and I will see you this Shabbat. We are going to continue in the book of Numbers, okay? Amen. God bless you, and I'll see you on Shabbat.